Let's Talk Money.
Good afternoon, Chattanooga. This is Let's Talk Money with Jamie O'Donnell and Jim Place. 267-1023 is the number. Starting our market day, Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 385 points, sitting at 40,444. S&P down 24, sitting at 5,446. Jim, how are you?
I'm doing excellent.
With us today, Todd Henon and Rhey Houston. How are you guys doing?
We're great.
Well, thank you.
Good. Well, now, Todd, we've had you on many
ma'am.
times before, and normally with Brittany.
Yep.
But, Rhey, this is your first time. What's your role at Henon Properties?
Well, that's a great question. Thanks for having me.
Yes.
I get to work alongside Todd and Brittany and an incredible team of realtors and land professionals to deliver a product, oftentimes a home, an estate, a farm, or a piece of investment property to some clients around this territory.
Well, I'm going to make the obvious comment here. Brittany's a hell of a lot better looking than you.
Well, you get that one. That's a
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Todd, what's going on in the Chattanooga real estate market?
The Chattanooga real estate market it's healthy. We're humming along in spite of what some would propose as high interest rates. We're still dealing with folks that need to buy, need to sell, want to buy. No shortage of folks looking at real estate. So I think overall we're in a healthy environment.
You know,
go ahead.
it's interesting what you said about interest rates, though, because there's perception and reality. Now, for most people, reality is whatever you've had the last 4 or 5 years.
Sure.
I mean, you talk about right now at about a 6.3, 6.4 number.
Correct.
A year ago, 6.8. 5 years ago, 3.9. 20 years ago, 5.8. National average for the last 50 years, 7.7.
Right.
We're not in an incredibly high interest rate environment, except for those that are looking back for a 5 or 6 year period of time.
Correct. I think as I look back on my career in this industry, the bulk of it has been made in a 6 to 7% interest rates. When we were in this, threes and the twos, Rhey and Brittany and I, the team, we would all talk about this is the stuff that leprechauns and unicorns and this is not going to last. This is a short-term deal.
Well, you had a Federal Reserve there just absolutely buying mortgage-backed securities, and they were buying literally billions upon billions of dollars of it, artificially driving a rate to an incredible 2.75 low.
Correct. Yep. We had a handful of folks that capitalized their timing. Life unfolded when it did, and they have the mortgage rate that is sub 3. Aside from that, I think most of our clients are between 3 and 6%.
And I know I've had clients that during that downturn, they probably refinanced 2 or 3 or 4 times.
Absolutely.
They'd drop a point and a half, they'd refi because they thought it might be near the bottom. They'd drop another point, they'd refi again, point and a half.
Yeah, we pulled a tax card the other day on something, and I think they had refied 5 times.
Five times. What percentage of the people who end up with a 30-year mortgage do you think actually go full term?
They're 5 to 7 years.
Yeah,
5 to 7 years.
I bet it's tiny.
If you look at a pool of mortgage-backed securities, the duration is about 6.8 years on a 30-year loan.
That's a great number.
Yeah. And that's not uncommon.
No. So I think when you look at we. At the end of the day, we're pulling for the economic health of the family, right? A 3% interest rate, 3.25, doesn't mean much to me if you're buying everything else under the sun and you don't have any money in reserves and you're living recklessly.
Right.
That's right. So what we're pulling for and what we're hoping for in our clients is great, take advantage of that low rate, but then be wise with the money. Let's talk about how you future plan, how you stack the deck in your favor financially for the future.
Do people seem more concerned about, and in some ways the end impact is the same, but the cost of the home or interest rates? Is it the combination of both? Is it keeping people from buying?
I certainly in the land space we see folks pull out of that. Wouldn't you say, Rhey?
I do. I mean, I think certainly that access to capital is a little tougher.
Sure.
It's a little harder to get that money for raw land from the bank, and interest rates play a big role in that when they consider it's an investment or it's not their primary home. But the pullback, I think, people are always going to need to move. They're always going to need a place to live. There's always a marriage. There's always a separation. There's always a new job, and people come and they need housing. And when it's,
that's
Ray,
fair.
You bring up a great point there, Ray, and Sabi helped put this information together that works with you. But he said, goes on here to talk about regardless of the market, people make real estate moves because. And then you start, you say job change, death, birth, divorce, marriage.
Yep.
And then the second thing that she put in here that was staggering to me over a 2-year period of time,
Yep.
there are going to be 7 million births,
Yep.
3 million marriages,
Yep.
1.5 million divorces,
Yeah.
7 million people turn 65, 4 million people die. So there is going to be, regardless of the economic environment,
That's right.
there is going to be a still fairly significant level of economic movement relative to residential real estate.
Yeah.
and doesn't that play into that number, 6.8, the years that you were talking about?
Yeah.
People hold a mortgage.
Yep.
Things just change.
They do.
They always will.
We had a good friend of ours the other day on Signal Mountain that his wife, they just kind of announced or told people that they're pregnant with their third child and they've got a smaller home and they're out of room.
Yep.
And therefore, that third birth has triggered a movement up on Signal Mountain from one house to another.
That's right.
How many people do you think are in the need to move versus the want to? And what's a normal market look like versus what it is right now?
Yeah. So I would, here's how I would answer that, Jamie. So those 5 things, so it's the birth, the death, the divorce, the marriage, and a job transfer, right? So 2008, 9, 10, 11, and even part of 12, that's how Todd Henon made a living. It was one of those 5 things right there. What we didn't see, rolling the clock back, say 36 months, we did not see the honey, I want a bigger home. Because the inventory of housing was shrinking, the likelihood that somebody would just upfit because they wanted to, there weren't that many opportunities. So then they would, to your point earlier, they're going to refinance, they're going to stay there. In a normalized market, guys, I would guess it's probably 20%. You know, they're just going to move.
Yeah.
But these 5 reasons, they are like rock solid principles in our industry.
That's interesting, because that's kind of like the person that trades cars every 2 years. Isn't
That's
it?
right.
That person has a mentality to get fresher, newer, different, kind of gets bored.
Yeah.
Right.
I want a lake home. I want to live on the golf course.
Yep.
I want to move to Signal.
Right.
Those things.
What median sales price in Chattanooga, Todd?
385. 385.
Well, how does that compare to the national?
We're down. We're substantially down. We're about 15% lower than the national average. And here's what's, I think, fascinating about that from certainly my seat. We're the fastest growing region in the country. When you look at the South, the Mid-South, the Southeast, our little quadrant of the country made up darn near 50% of the home purchases across the country. Folks are coming here. They love the internet, the fiber optics infrastructure. They love the conservativeness of the South, the affordability of the South, with the whole I can work from anywhere now. You know, it's just when you look at the Great Migration, right? That was to the north, to the northern cities based on industry and manufacturing. Well, not so much now, right? So it's like, well, where can we go? Where there's a moderate 4 seasons of the year. We get spring, winter, summer, fall. Property taxes, income taxes, all those are, Florida and Tennessee don't have the income tax. So we're drafting a ton of attention from across the country.
Well, I mean, let's look. I grew up where cars get built. Detroit.
Yeah.
Where cars get built now? Chattanooga.
That's right.
Greenville, South Carolina.
Spring Hill.
Spring Hill. Yeah. I mean, why? Less taxation, better weather,
Workforce
environment,
Oval
right to work states. Yeah, all those things.
Yeah, Blue Oval City's not coming here on accident, coming to Tennessee, right?
Yeah, Blue Oval City, Ford's new production facility coming to West Tennessee, just north of Jackson.
Can Chattanooga handle this growth?
So Ray, bless his heart, so he leaves downtown and he's got to come, with the grain getting out of the city, much like you do, Jim. And I'll defer that to him.
It's Chattanooga is such a beautiful city because we have a river and we have mountains and we have the ridge, but we also have, thoroughfares that have to navigate all that. So your question, Jamie, about can we handle it? We will handle it, right? Somehow they're going to squeeze one more.
Well, the question is, do we handle it well? That's a completely different answer.
That's the different question. And it will look different, right? There will be spread out sprawl. There will be a migration to the areas where there's still green land, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the corridor between here and Cleveland, the corridor between here and Dayton. The Sequatchie Valley, those have access to real estate that we can build on.
The other thing that I've noticed, even within the framework of what we did here at Evergreen, we purposely relocated from downtown to East Braden. Yep. Mm-hmm. We did that because of where we lived, right. And where we chose to live inside the community, and then we made absolute stone cold business decisions to stay out of damn Rich Cut. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're a Signal Mountain guy. One of the reasons I've never lived on Signal Mountain, I don't want to drive up a mountain.
I understand.
Not good or bad doesn't mean that it's not a great community out there, but a lot of decision making getting made by people right now, I would assume, is relative to school locations I had a gentleman the other day said he was moving out of Council Fire because he had a 7-year-old, and the 7-year-old was going to Bright School, and the kid was going to go to Bright and go to Baylor. And he said, I need to get on the north side of the river.
I do think we're working really quickly to sequester the Chattanooga at large. So we'll sequester to Ottawa, Appleton. We'll sequester to north of the river. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. People
will tend to, because it can be a challenge to now navigate, whether it's 153 or I-24. That's a true challenge.
The interesting thing, Jamie, and you could comment on this, the percentage of people I talk to, and there's not a great percentage of people that live on Missionary Ridge because it's just not that big an area. But every one of them talk about the ability to be able to transfer to downtown or transfer to East Braden.
Yeah, you can be anywhere in about 15 minutes. And that's... But here's the thing. To be able to make these choices, you also have to be able to afford the house in that. Mm-hmm. You only get to make that choice if you can afford the house in a given area. And I think a lot of people are being pushed out and don't have that option.
The most expensive real estate, the most expensive land, and this holds true. When you look at whether it's Detroit, Huntsville, or Chattanooga, Tennessee, the most expensive is in the center. And it works out, right? It becomes more affordable the farther you move away from whatever the X on the map is that you declare the center of that city. Real estate becomes less cost prohibitive the further you move out.
Which means your transportation time is going to be lengthened.
You got it.
267-1023 is the number. This Let's Talk Money. We'll be right back.
Let's Talk Money. Talk Radio 102.3.
You're back with Let's Talk Money. 267-1023 is the number. With us this afternoon, Todd Henon and Rhey Houston from Todd Henon Properties. All right, now, Todd.
Yes, sir.
I think I've done about 7,000 radio shows.
Yes, sir.
I have never been presented with such detailed information in my entire career prior to a show.
Yes, sir.
Who is Sabi?
Yes.
And where did you find her? Because this woman is good.
Yeah. Between Sabi and Beth, they tee
now
us.
Beth is your wife?
Beth is my wife. So they tee our entire team up for success. And anytime that I don't achieve whatever that marker is, it's my own damn fault, right? Because they've done all that two human beings.
Yeah, you got no excuses.
That's exactly right.
How long has Sabi been with you?
13 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Where did she come from?
So she's a Signal Mountain native and came into one of the gals that worked for me, again, 13 years ago, said, Todd, she'll come in, work part-time. And, it started with a small thing, right? And Sabi, I think she's put her heart and soul into the business then, and her responsibilities started growing, and now, she's an asset to the entire team, to our our production inside of the community, whether it's what we look like, from a PR perspective. She and Beth masterfully handle that. But then she coaches and tees all of us up just
daily.
Daily, yeah.
That's what's remarkable. This type of preparation we get to come here and share with you, but it's not an anomaly for us. Sabi and Beth bring us this type of information that we can digest and discuss and take it into our own lanes, and they do that every day.
Well, and, guys, we were discussing during the previous break about a team concept versus a silo.
Right.
A silo, 10 people all work in the same building, but they all do their own thing, and that's it.
Right.
As versus the team concept, and I think one of the reasons that our firms have kind of gravitated towards one another is we run our businesses the same way.
Right.
You're not a client of an individual. There are a group of people here, and I'm going to guess there are things that Todd Henon or Rhey does well, and then there are things that you probably don't do near as well as the people that work with you.
Oh, I assure you of that. There's no question. There's plenty I don't do well. Sabi, Jenny, Bella, Marie, they do the things that I am not good at. And here's what's cool about that team environment, y'all. And I mean, I'm talking to a coach, right? It's everybody's pulling in the same direction.
Yep.
That's what you're that's the coaching. It's like, here's our goals. Here's what we're pushing for. This is what we're pulling everybody every day in the same direction. We're not fractured. we've not lost focus on what we want to accomplish. We know where we want to go. We know what we want to do. We know how we're going to get there.
Well, and I've pretty well known Brittany Fulmer and
Sure.
pretty much from the day she was born.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I can see why she was attracted to this environment. Number one, she's a hustler. There's no doubt about that.
That's right.
And she's charming, and she's been raised by wonderful parents.
She has.
But I would see why she would be attracted to this kind of environment, because that's the kind of environment she grew up in.
Yep. And I'll tell you what's really cool about Britt. From day one, she will outwork her peers every day. Outwork them. That's upbringing, right? That's character. Mm-hmm. You don't just pick that up. You're taught character.
That.
Right. And so she gets it from her mom and her dad, and we're just grateful and thankful to be in a relationship with her and that entire family.
Well, and for sure, you built this business over some decades, as Todd did, right? And he could speak to this, but we have some choices when we develop a platform for how we're going to go to market. And Todd and Beth somehow decided over all those years that he didn't want to do it out the front seat of his pickup truck. Mm-hmm. And he could speak to why this team it was chosen and how it's assembled. But I can tell you, in this market, from someone who worked a whole nother life and a whole nother career,
sure,
it's a very unique environment.
Yeah, you would think that the team approach, whether it be in our industry or y'all's industry, would be common. It's not.
It's not.
No, it's not. One of the things, and that's a great point, just specifically with respect to Rhey, what I felt like Rhey brought to our organization. I love land, always have loved land. I think it's a fascinating topic, certainly inside of the field of real estate. Well, here Rhey retires from another industry. He's conserved well over 10,000 acres set aside in perpetuity to not be developed. And he wants to come work with us and brings an added skill set, asset class of intellectual property that I don't have, that he's great at. He's great at communicating with, whether it's an agricultural tract that one of his clients right now, they just buy agricultural acreage on a very, very large scale.
Income
and it's all
producing ag land.
Yep. Or it's the guy that wants 200 acres to go shoot ducks on, over in West Tennessee. That's what Rhey is. He's in that space and can carry those conversations that I can't.
But Todd's background in construction prior to coming here gives us a lot of overlap. When we look at a piece of land that whether you're trying to assess a value or not, you're always trying to figure out what's its highest and best use, because that's your buyer. That's the person that's going to land there. Todd has a history in construction where we overlap there, and he can look at a piece of property and say, I know what'll fit here. I know how many lots it'll make. I know if it's transitional land or if it's going to be that gentleman farm. And that's unique to what we do as well.
Let's go to the phone lines. Hi, Smokey. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Great. What's up?
And I've called in before and asked this question. I'm 50 years old. I got 5 years till I can consider retirement. I got $860,000 in a 401k. I work for a company that's got a pension fund. My wife got breast cancer 6 years ago. We sold a big house, moved into an apartment. Best decision I ever made. It fit our lifestyle. Why aren't developers building 1,200, 1,500 square foot homes with very high-end stuff in them? When I retire, I want to buy another house, but I don't need anything that's 2,700 square feet.
Yeah,
we'll discuss it, Smokey. Thanks
Smokey.
for the call.
All right, so here's my thoughts there. But first, I think it's a great question.
Yes.
I think it's a great question.
Perfect question.
Part of my answer would be the sophistication of the local marketplace. That's out of the box thinking. That's, if you go to Sarasota, if you go to Central Florida, I suspect you could find that product certainly more in a more common sense than you can in Hamilton County, Chattanooga, Tennessee. So part of it is need-based. It's a sophistication of the development community, maybe not recognizing. Think about it. Smokey's the anomaly, right? If 10 buyers walk through this front door, how many are like Smokey? Not that many, right? Is it 10%? Is it 8%? Well, if you're a developer, what are you aiming for? You're aiming for the masses. I need 6 of those people. I need to build a house for 6 of them, not one of them, right?
Now, let me ask you this, Todd. The numbers are saying nationwide that the homes that are being built now are smaller.
Yes.
But not prohibitively small. They're not going from 27 to 1,200.
Yeah.
But they may be going from 32 to 26.
That's right. We all know what a McMansion was. Mm-hmm. Well, we don't see much of that any longer, but there was a time and a space for that. And I think that's a relationship to capital cost, to the needs of the consumers at large, the marketplace. Now, affordability comes flying into that decision. Do I build a 1,600, 1,900, or 2,400 square foot home? Because I don't, as a builder or a developer, I don't want to build the 3,000. Because again, going back to my example a moment ago, that's a 3,200 square foot home, guys. That's $1 million now in Chattanooga, Tennessee. That's not hard to find. It's $1 million, right? So it's like they've got to get that. The only way they can reduce the price, because sheetrock costs what sheetrock cost, and shingles cost what shingles cost, you have to downsize the product. So we are absolutely seeing a national trend to a smaller footprint. And when you look at what thought leaders in our industry are doing with respect to density, right? So we're talking about ADUs in the city. Well, you don't build a 3,000 square foot ADU. You build an 800, 600 square foot ADU to drive a higher density.
What's ADU?
Alternative dwelling unit. So what we're seeing with Hamilton County or Chattanooga's revamping, revising our zoning codes to create a higher density. I think in a large part that's what's driving that conversation.
Now, the other thing that Smokey hit on, and this is the same conversation I've had with my brother-in-law who's in the development business, is building a smaller home. Let's say going from 2,800 feet to 1,500 feet and building a group of 1,500 square foot homes with very high amenities. Now, that's I've really not seen a bunch of in this area where we got older people that really want to downsize, that want to get considerably smaller, less maintenance, less everything connected with it, but they don't want to give up anything from the standpoint of amenity. And that's a little bit of a struggle, because I'm watching new homes being built in that 1,500 to 2,000 square foot range right near where I live out there, but they're very, very cookie cutter, box oriented, not on the high end from an amenity standpoint.
Right. One of the things that there's several thoughts that come flying into my mind. One is the whole aging in place discussion where, folks, right? Is this?
Yep, we were talking about that yesterday on the show, as a matter of fact.
The silver tidal wave, the baby boomers, they want to age in place, but one of the common denominators that Ray and I see on some of our properties is that homeowners stay too long. Just because they age out, care cannot be given in the way that it needs to be administered to the real estate.
They wait too long.
They wait too long, bro.
One day too long. That's the conversation we have often is you can't stay one day too long, and then your wife's having to make the decision, or your caretakers are having to make the decision. If we can make those decisions a little sooner and move to the property that fits, then you have some access.
There is a cool, to Smokey's point, and I think this is right. I think it's Brownwood on Lookout Mountain. And I think Dwayne Horton did that project. But, that is a smaller footprint. Those homes are 2,700 square feet. And I mean, granted, they're not 1,600, but they are what I would say above average fit and finishes, some of them actually on the brow. But I think they did that development for a niche. They were shooting at a very small demographic, but it's a solid demographic. Again, to Smokey's point, there aren't that many options out here.
No.
So if you do it, chances are, if you're a gambling guy, that it's going to be a good bet and it's going to be successful.
267-1023 is the number. This Let's Talk Money. We'll be right back.
Let's Talk Money. Talk Radio 102.3.
We're back with Let's Talk Money. 267-1023 is the number. With us today, Todd Henon and Ray Houston. All right, let's spend some time talking about land. I'm going to make the assumption people are buying land for very big picture 2 reasons: as an investment or to play.
A dream.
Lifestyle, whatever term you want to put on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And I feel like those are really very different. Because if you're looking for it, the investment, the whole goal of that is for it to make money, whereas the lifestyle is fill in the blank, whatever it is you want to do with it.
Right.
What makes buying land different from just buying a house, or y'all's role in it?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. The land has, no fixture sitting on top of it, so we don't think about home inspections and all those things that people may have experienced when they bought their home. But we do need to think about things like entitlements. How's it zoned? Land's such a broad definition. What is land? It can be the lot next door to your home, and you say it's worth a little more to me than it is anyone. But it could be that gentleman's farm where you want to take your kids and spend the weekends. It's over in the other side of the mountain. So it's a really broad thing. The thing that makes that acquisition different is typically it's not your first place you're going to live. So you're spending your money that comes from a different bucket, right?
Yes.
It can be recreational money or investment money. If it's investment money, there's an investment concept that needs to be realized on the front end, and then an exit strategy that you need to be thinking about early.
Ray, am I looking to you if I hire you with Todd and for your services out there? It would appear to me that there's a percentage of people that buy land. They just bought it at the right time, and they're not necessarily talented. They're lucky. Then there's a percentage of people out there that are really looking for deals that are strategically looking for the investment world.
Both, for sure, both. And the ones that were just really lucky, I think often the difference is they still had 20 years to enjoy that money that they parked in that lake lot or that lake property and on Watts Bar or Chickamauga, and so they spent countless days.
Well, I was thinking of yourself when you said to me earlier, you said you bought the 2 lots next door to your house several years ago, and it ended up being a great investment.
Great investment.
I don't know whether you're just trying to protect your homestead at that particular point in time, or where you had the foresight to go, oh, this is going to be a tremendous investment 20 years.
Perfect, and it was the earlier for sure. I wanted to make sure that my son had a place to play soccer with his buddies and that there wasn't a house next door. And today it's still a soccer field and all the neighborhood kids use it. But someday it will be a part of our retirement, right?
Yes.
A very successful piece.
The one thing that every person that gets lucky in the land space, the one common denominator, they hold it for a long time, right? Yeah.
True.
So it's a hard deal to structure to where it's a moneymaker today. I think when you look at folks that buy it and there's a dream attached to it. For example, we had a fella several years ago. He just bought it, and I don't remember if it was 2 acres, 3 acres, 4 maybe, but it was on the side of one of the rivers here. It wasn't like lakefront property. It was a very affordable, and he went and built a little deck of a thing, and they had a camper, and he and his family would go and they would canoe, kayak. They enjoyed it. Well, as our community grew 15 years later, he now has it's a noteworthy asset. It's grown in value over 15 years. You know what he paid $30,000 or $40,000 for now is worth $200,000. That's a pretty good lick.
Where can we find affordable land around here now? I mean, I know even look very seriously, but even Sequatchie Valley, which, is one of the most beautiful places in the world, in my opinion.
Beautiful spots.
Which you used to think of that as, or I would have thought of it as relatively affordable, but it's harder to find out there now, and it's more expensive. Where do you go?
Yep. So I've got an example. Ray will laugh here. So Polk County, and guys, I'm not kidding. And I think Polk County is beautiful. There's some stunning stuff up there.
Lots of park.
Yeah, lots of park. So there was a point in time where the phone would ring and it would be someone saying, "Hey, we have this property in Polk County, piece of land, or even a residential property that we want to sell." And I would think to myself, "Man, this is a long road to hoe. This is going to take us." But now, again, you're going back to the immigrants coming to Tennessee and to the Southeast. At Polk County, it's a desirable place to be, and it kind of goes into that who'da thunk category.
Yeah.
Right?
I talked to a lady this morning on the phone from Atlanta, home in Atlanta, home in London, well-capitalized family with a lot of opportunities. Their friends all went to Blue Ridge from Atlanta, right? That whole let's buy a home in Cashiers or Blue Ridge or Dahlonega. And if you think about the geography and the topography of Polk County, of everything up the Ocoee River, it's the same mountains.
Yeah.
And you have the whole Cherokee National Forest. And I think there is some affordability there for that if you want to have land and recreation and access to the mountains and access to the trails. There's a space there. There's still places in the valley, in the Sequatchie Valley, but they've pushed further north, right? That Rift Valley is so unique that the access, the end that gets closest to the river, to the Tennessee River, the southern end has been more accessible, and there's still land up the valley and on the mountainsides.
267-1023 is the number. This Let's Talk Money. We'll be right back.
Let's Talk Money on Talk Radio 102.3.
We're back with Let's Talk Money. 267-1023 is the number. With us today, Todd Henon and Rhey Houston. All right, because I feel like we're supposed to. Let's talk about the change in your industry's compensation. What's happened there?
Yep.
What's the impact?
Yep, because there's a real estate guy in the room.
Exactly.
So I think here was the missing piece in our industry. For example, if whatever trade I was in, I was going to come to you and Jim was going to hire me. What has to take place? He has to hire me. And part of that discussion, arguably, is, Jim, how much are you going to pay me? That didn't take place in our industry. There was a void inside of our industry. So I think now the declarations and the change in the industry simply put parameters around, Jim, you're going to hire me, so we're going to have a discussion, what that looks like, what value I bring to the table, and how much are you going to pay me? That's the essence of this change in our industry. Here, prior to, it was this, as a buyer's agent, there was this void or gap of information.
Seller pays 6%.
That's correct. That was kind of the end of it. And unfortunately, I do think that across the country, when you look at, a 1 million member industry, there were conversations taking place that declared, oh, this is a standard commission. Oh, this is fixed. This is normal. Well, the fact is, commissions have always been a negotiated number. But again, 1 million members, there's going to be liberties where folks are uncomfortable having an uncomfortable conversation. They're going to avoid it, and they're going to say, oh, well, it's standard that you pay 6%. Well, that wasn't true, but then it left out the whole buying side agent.
Well, is there going to be a situation here where the buyer needs to pay their agent?
Could be. Could be.
I mean, if I'm the seller and I say, okay, I'm going to hire Todd, or I'm going to hire Brittany, or I'm going to hire Ray, and
sure,
I'm going to pay you your full 3% for being the listing agent.
Right.
Does that leave the buyer and the buyer's agent to negotiate with one another?
It could. So this agreement that a buyer and the buyer's agent have to have on the front end is addressing the dollars. So Mr. Buyer and Mr. Buyer's real estate agent, they're going to have a discussion that says, all right, in the event that the seller won't pay me, the buyer will pay the agent. Right? We tracking? Yep. But it also, this agreement gives permission to the real estate agent to negotiate a fee paid by the seller. Yeah,
which it would appear to me that, I mean, if I'm the buyer and you're going to make, and the seller is only going to pay 3, that I'm reducing the price of the house by 3 to pay my agent. I mean, at the end of the day, it all has to get washed out.
It's all
in the
negotiation.
ultimate. I mean, because ultimately, when you leave the closing, someone leaves with
All
X
the
amount of
money.
damn dollars.
All the money's all the money.
Yeah, it is. I mean, however you're going to divide it and however you're going to do it. And I will tell people this in general. If I'm good at what I do,
that's right,
I'm not discounting my fee.
Hello.
No.
Right. I'm not.
Right. There's an agreement that takes place between us,
Yes.
our clients, that we have to have an agreement that says, Todd, here's how you're going to get paid. Ray's how you are going to get paid. I believe that it is now become transparent. It'll move it out onto the document where everyone can see what's being paid. That's a good thing. Transparency in any industry is always good. Right?
It's always
there's
good.
more than one way to negotiate it now. We could agree with a seller to include some concession for a buyer, or, like Mr. Place said, maybe not. Maybe there's no agreement there, and we negotiate it on the face of the contract. Or the buyer's agent could negotiate with his buyer, I'm going to do a great job for you. I'm going to earn my piece in the negotiation.
Well,
just pay me.
the great thing that happens here is everybody knows now.
Everybody knows.
I mean, that's
always
what ought
good.
to happen out of the thing.
We had a discussion yesterday. The lady said, I'm not doing this without you. She said, just tell me what you're charging. I'm not doing it without you.
Right.
It's like, oh, good.
Todd, Ray, thanks, guys. Enjoyed
y'all are
it.
the best. Thank you,
guys.
Appreciate you.
Coming up next, Yaffe Live, 1 to 3, 3 to 7 Sport Talk. We'll talk to you all tomorrow.